You go first.
Um,
We actually had quite turbulent dating period. We were dating for around 3 years. Um, we had a quite early pregnancy,
yeah,
and we had decided that we're not going to just stay together for the sake
right.
because we've had a child. But I think no matter when we separated, we always gravitated back
Back.
to each other. So that was something that I think what that happened. So
Yeah.
I think I remember saying something like, "I can't see my life
You
without
that yeah.
you."
Because you know.
Something like
I
that.
mean.
Something. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Something along those lines.
Yeah.
So I think it was then. It was like I couldn't see, no matter how many times we broke up or had our little fights and whatnot.
Yeah.
We always found our way back to each other.
Well, how did we know that we'd found the right person for us? So I would say definitively is when I was having issues with immigration and stuff like that. So I was born in Jamaica and I moved over here when I was 8 years old. And then kind of through that not being necessarily handled in the best way or running into different issues with like lawyers and stuff like that, basically immigration lawyers, it led to the point where I needed to kind of progress in my life in terms of college and university. So then that led to me and Kenny were together at the time, and then that led to
I fell in love with this man instantly. As soon as I saw him, I was like, wow.
I got asked by immigration and whatnot to basically leave the country. And then I basically said to Kenya, this is what's happened. I've been asked to leave. If you want to leave me, I don't blame you. I think it's fine because I have this personal thing I need to sort out. And Kenya was basically like, no, it's all right, I'll stay and I'll
Yeah,
support
I
you
was
through
like,
this.
I'm willing to come to Jamaica with you. I was like, let's go to Jamaica.
I fell in love with this man instantly. As soon as I saw him, I was like, wow. And I was actually with someone at the time, and he broke up with me. And a series of circumstances, we ended up seeing each other in a high street, and we exchanged numbers. And I spent one evening with him, and I was absolutely besotted. And I was very young at the time, but yeah, I really, really just instantly fell in love.
So the moment that I knew I had found my person, it was not too long before I proposed to you. I had known that you were my person, shortly before then, because of who you were, your personality. You were a lot of fun. We used to stay on the phone for hours and hours at a time talking about foolishness. So
We used to watch Star Trek together, and that was the days, yeah, I'm showing my age, when you had a mobile phone and, you had to carry it and a little thing. And I'd go to the store talking to him because he was telling me what was happening on Star Trek. And we would talk for hours on
hours
end.
and hours. And we wouldn't be, and what's amazing about this, I think, is we wouldn't be in the same house. We would just be on the phone talking for hours and hours, just about silly stuff. She had an interest in cars.
And music.
And music. We had the same taste in music. She's a great cook.
Sometimes.
Yeah, she's funny.
Oh, he's really funny.
Yeah,
We were pretty compatible from the beginning. I think that I think because we had so much in common and we used to spend so much time talking to one another. And that really hasn't changed through the years, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I knew you were my one almost from the onset. I think it's cliche, but people always say, you know when you know.
The way that I knew that I had found my person, I think when we first got together, or were speaking, because we didn't have any labels. I had a lot of rules, and like things that I was like, I'm not taking this. I'm not taking that. I'm not taking this. And he was kind of like ready to do that. And I was like, I've never had someone who's like ready to put in the work and to do all the list of things that I've asked him to do. And I was like, oh, maybe. And I grew up Christian, so I never went into a relationship without thinking about the end goal being like, we're gonna spend a life together. And so from the start, I was kind of like, I don't play no games. So if you want to speak to me, that's fine. Just know that I'm in this to get ready for marriage.
It's like when you're window shopping, so to speak. I know it's a very blasé answer, and you're looking for that outfit. It doesn't really matter the price tag. Once you see, like, oh, that's it. And then you figure out whether you can afford it or not if you're a window shopper. When you're looking for your significant other, you don't really have, I know I didn't have this, oh, she has to look like this, she has to wear this, because we're from two different cultures, You're from one part of the world, I'm from another part of the world, and we just kind of blended and made it work.
Yeah, for me, it was similar but different because I didn't have many partners before Terry. So for me, it took some time for me to realize you were my person. I had to see some qualities that would work for me. So yeah, it took a while. It took about 6 months. It wasn't first day, first...
love at first sight type thing.
Yeah, that was not our case at all.
No. It was love eventually,
Yeah.
Love eventually. Yeah, love eventually.
Grew up in a Christian house, but not to the degree you did. Obviously, your parents are pastors and that, so it's slightly different. But came from a Christian family, and I think, I was never into having a relationship for the sake of it. You know what I mean? There's other things you can do than have a relationship.
Yeah. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. So I think that when I decided, I'm into you and stuff, I knew in my heart, like from the jump, this is gonna be years.
So, wow, this is going back then 9 years now, and how did we know? This is such a hard question.
At the time, I just broke up from a relationship, and I met this lady, or this lady was stalking me. And
He likes this word stalking, which I don't mind. Sorry to interrupt you, Pete. I don't mind the story. Go with your story. Right, go.
And I remember, I had this lady, and she took an interest in me, and nice lady, but I was just getting over a breakup, and things were on my mind. And I remember approaching another friend of mine who had been through something similar, who just says, you know what, go for it. And after some time, I did. And I haven't looked back, to be honest with you. And here we are today, some years after.
When you know, you know. When you know, you know. For us two, we'd actually previously known each other prior to that. So in 2009, we were part of Identity Drama School, the two of us. And yeah, we got on them times there, but then Stella left drama school, I carried on, and our lives went in their different pathways. And then later on in life, I was performing spoken word outside of the American Embassy.
In a protest.
In a protest for Michael Brown and Mark Duggan and all those that have been affected or killed by the police. And Stella turned up to the protest and then came up to me afterwards and was like, oh, do you remember me? I was like, of course I do. And then from that point on, our connection just it was just like
Instant.
Yeah, it was
I think,
instant.
Okay, so good. Yeah, it was the first day that we had a date. After that, I knew. And then,
The first date.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah. Truthfully, yeah.
Like a lot of alignments was happening around them times, and yeah, I think,
Even the planetary alignments, like the moon was really full that first date, and yeah, ended up kissing under the moon.
yeah, it was proper
Romantic,
Yeah, it was a film,
Afro-romantic
film.
I can answer that one easy. For me, it was the first time I met her. And I'm not just saying that for the cameras. I'm not just saying that for the audience or for Natasha. That was actually true. Because I was 32 at the time, something like that.
I can't remember ages.
And yeah, at that point, so I've been through my teens and my 20s, and hadn't dated, hundreds of women, but I'd met a few women along the way, and I knew what I wanted and didn't want, and Natasha just ticked all the boxes. So for me, it was like, yep, this lady is a keeper without a doubt. And 20 odd years later, I guess I was right.
Well, I knew, and I'm happy you did know.
And for me, I knew he was the right person from the beginning. He was such a lovely person. He still is. And we were quite young, so I think we were 16 talking. And then it was like, oh, well, nobody else is really nice like this. And he'd mentioned things about marriage, and I'd say to myself, well, my auntie was married and I really wanted to be married like my auntie. And for someone to be talking about marriage to me at 16, that was really nice. So I knew from then. So
For me, I think it was love at first sight. I personally think it was love at first sight. But
you're going to tell the story?
Should I tell the story? As Ebony said, when we first met, when I was working for a company in Slough, I didn't think that Ebony was within reach. I saw her and I was like, oh my goodness, wow. Apart from the fact that it was rare to see black women in that environment anyway, to see one understanding herself, like, oh my goodness. But she was out of reach and unattainable. I wasn't with anybody at the time. I'd actually come out of a pretty trying relationship. Okay, you did it.
So if you don't know, we've got a 10-year age gap. And when I was in school, I used to go to his workplace and like look at him and whatnot. And then a few years later, I was in T-Mobile in Kilburn, and he was working. And instead of having to, he actually served me. He gave me my BlackBerry contract.
Yeah.
And then
It's a long time ago.
And then I was in a hurry for work. I was running late for work. I don't know why I was getting a contract that day. And I was running late to work. And then I think I came back about a week later, and I was waiting for the 206 bus. And then you came up to me to speak. And then you asked for my number. And I said, no, you can have my BB pin. And then, yeah, the rest is history.
Yeah. But what you forgot to miss out is that day that you left the store, I wanted your number so badly. I was even willing to break data protection, but I'm like, now I'm not going to do that. So I think you came to the bus stop about 3 months later.
Yeah.
And it was one of my colleagues that called me and was like, yo, that's that girl that you was getting on about. And I more or less imposed a vow of celibacy on myself. And when Ebony came into, my existence, as it were, I just thought, wow, what an amazing looking woman. Just had such a glowing aura about her that I thought, wow. But it was one of those things that I just never assumed would be possible. And without going to
lots of detail because she'd kill me if if I speak about some of the circumstances. But we when we started sort of speaking at lunchtime.
So basically, I was at university at the time, and I was off for the summer, and I was working in a canteen in his workplace. So yeah, I was dishing up rice and whatever they were serving at the time.
She likes
giving him extra portions. I did give you extra portions.
You were not giving nobody no extra portions.
I was giving you extra portions.
But what you forgot to miss out is that day that you left the store, I wanted your number so badly. I was even willing to break data protection. But I'm like, now I'm not going to do that. So I think you came to the bus stop about 3 months later.
Yeah.
And it was one of my colleagues that called me and was like, yo, that's that girl that you was getting on about. And then I called you into the shop and then we started talking. Like you said, asked for your number and you went, nah, I'm not giving you my number.
It, mate.
And then BB pin. Do you know what I mean? That's how long ago that was, like the BB pin. And then here we are.
I knew in my heart, like from the jump, this is gonna be years, if not my whole life. Which is panning out to be right now, which is dope. Yeah, it's dope.
It's cool. But I just think it's crazy that we were like 18 and 19 and went into it with that mindset when we should have really been having fun and been like, it's just
there was fun prior to.
I know, for you, for some.
Yeah, for me. I'm not gonna lie about that. But I think it's mad that we were so young and
we just
both met on that page of like, look, this is what we want to do. And I think for you it's interesting because you had both your parents in the same household, married from a young age. And I suppose that could have been part of your...
Yeah, that's what I knew and what I saw.
So I think it was then, it was like, I couldn't see, no matter how many times we broke up or had our little fights and whatnot, we always found our way back to each other.
Definitely. I think for me, it was a bit different. I knew when it was like, I was like, okay, it's him, was when there was, like he was saying, there was a lot of turmoil during our dating time. But I also know there was a lot of outside forces that were trying to break us up. And when he went against some of his friends, his twin brother, to say, this is who I'm with, I knew, okay, I'm safe with this person. This person will continually choose me, even when people, friends, things, maybe are telling him not to. And so I felt so safe in that moment. And that's when I knew I'm good.
Wow.
I knew he was when I first saw him, I thought, yes. We met at a roller skating club. This was in Edmonton. This is back in the day. And roller skating was our thing. I was not an expert. Peter can skate around anybody backwards, upside down, forwards, on his head, you name it.
Yeah. I'm usually tumbling by that time, though.
I was a novice. I remember having to go to the introduction classes and then I'll go on the Friday class later on just to look good from what I learned on the... Anyway. So we saw each other then. That was it. But it's only when we went to a nightclub. The skating venue had closed down. A couple of years later... a club called Ezekiel's. You're looking like you don't remember.
No, Peckham, yeah.
And I remember it being Valentine's and I didn't have anyone in my life at the time and my friend didn't have, and we just, let's go out. And I remember being in the queue and I just looked at him and went, I know you!
But there was one time we got into a conversation and it turned out that he was going to visit his mum because it was his birthday. And I was like, when's your birthday? And he was like, oh, it's on Monday. And my birthday was on the Tuesday. So that's when we realised we had kind of like back-to-back birthdays. And that just made me even more like, oh, wow. But yeah, he invited me to his birthday shindig and I went with my sisters. But again, it was just kind of like, oh, he's a nice guy. But there wasn't any kind of like thinking that anything was going to come off it. And as I said, I was with someone at the time. But yeah... eventually, we ended up together.
And so for me, it was our actual first encounter. We were at Faro Airport. We were going on a trip. basically he was with his lads, I was with my girls, but it was like a week-long trip that we were going on. Like, it was like a big group trip. And I couldn't take my suitcase off the carousel. And I stood there for ages looking at it thinking, well, who the hell's going to help me take this off? And this young man came up and he goes, is that your bag? And I was like, yeah. And he took it off for me. And I just thought, wow, gentlemen. And with all the men that were around and nobody actually basically gave a damn.
I think for you it's interesting because you had both your parents in the same household, married from a young age. And I suppose that could have been part of your...
Yeah, that's what I knew and what I saw.
And for me, it was different.
Yeah.
Because it was just my mum. My dad was is around, but wasn't living in the house with us and stuff. So where I got that inspiration, I don't really know.
Yeah, I think that when you talk about that sequence of events where we bumped into each other in town, I mean, I was busy kind of trying to be the host with the most at the birthday barbecue. So as much as I'd wanted to, spend some time talking to you, didn't really get too much of an opportunity. Probably spoke to your sisters more than you, if anything. And we meant to maintain contact, but we just missed each other. So when I went back to work and it hadn't occurred to me she was going back to university, basically, it's like, oh my God, now I'm getting all these small portions again.
But I think to answer the question, when did I first know that Tamika was the one? I actually remember the day.
Oh, specific.
Yeah, I remember the day. So we had a class. Yeah, we had a drama class together. We was in similar classes and that. And one day she sang a song. She sang this song. I sang it at our wedding as well, yeah. In the vows and that. But she sang this song. What was it called? Island Girl?
It's from Once on This Island.
Right.
Oh God.
Yeah. So she sang this song, crazy presence, crazy voice, beautiful woman. And it's weird because we had already been in the class together for
a month or something.
More than that. We started drama school in
September.
Okay, so it would have been October.
Yeah.
Halfway through October, November times. Around that.
Yeah.
So we'd already seen each other and it wasn't that. Do you know what I mean? Which is weird because you're in a drama school environment, predominantly white environment, and she was the only... You was the only fully black girl in that year group.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you was. So, within the acting year group. And it just wasn't that. I saw her, she was attractive, but it was too much. I think Tamika was a bit too much.
And he was too much.
Yeah,
I was like, no, yeah. You just reminded me of guys back home, and I was like, I'm not doing that.
And likewise.
And I was like, I'm not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know what happened that day. Something just compelled me to go into town as opposed to stay in the canteen. And there she was.
And this young man came up and he goes, is that your bag? And I was like, yeah. And he took it off for me. And I just thought, wow, gentlemen. And with all the men that were around and nobody actually basically gave a damn, that stood out for me. Like, that's something that a gentleman does. So, yeah, that was my first, And
I remember it being Valentine's and I didn't have anyone in my life at the time and my friend didn't have. And we just, let's go out. And I remember being in the queue and I just looked at him and went, I know you. I don't hold back. But at the time I thought you were with somebody. That's when we met.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And it's a longer story to that, but yeah, that's...
So we met there, and then, of course, I was asked about, how can we catch up? And I said, well, I'll be out on a Wednesday night at a club used to go in the West End, Hanover Grand, of which I must admit I didn't turn up at.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway,
Let me carry on my story. Make it flow right, you know what I'm saying?
You saw me singing.
I saw Tamika singing, and I'm not even chatting rubbish, I cried. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I'm a crier though. So, you know what I mean? So, cried, I hit up one of her homies. She's our good friend now. She was a bridesmaid at our wedding. And I said, yo, Jessie, I think I think this is the one. And then it took a while. Even then, it wasn't straight after that I spoke to her. We was friends, but we wasn't. There was nothing going on. She like knew that I was seeing other girls and just wasn't interested in me and whatever. And we had another drama class where I won't say his name, but he's a cool guy. But this guy was tasked to do a scene study with Tamika. And do you remember?
Yeah.
But my friend who I usually go out with at the time, go raving with at the time, was there. And it turned out that Angela made inquiries about me at the time to my friend.
Yeah, so I couldn't see him at the club that you said he was going to be at, but I recognised the faces of the people he was at the club. Yeah, and that's when I made my inquiries.
Yeah.
And then I think
It after some time it blossomed from there.
Yeah, it contacted me and it went, yeah.
So they were doing a scene study together, and she had to like rub
I was
oil.
massaging him.
She had to
with
rub oil on his back, or some sort of weirdness was going on. Yeah, whole heap of weirdness. But then I knew, because the way I felt when I saw that, I said, nah, this is not right. You know what I mean? So as soon as we finished that lesson, was in the courtyard, ran up on her. It was like a movie that she had already kind of left she was going out, ran up on her quickly and said, hey, yo, like, I was wondering if I could take you out. And then she was like, you're not serious. And I said, I swear down. And I was smiling just like this. I said, I swear down, I'm serious. So what are we going to do then? I'll take you out, innit? Where? Nando's. Little banter. You know what I'm saying? You know, with the little Nando's or something. And to be fair, I'd never taken a girl out on a date. I'd never gone to cinema with no one. I'd never gone to a restaurant with no one. That just wasn't what I grew up around. So, that was the moment, I think.
Yeah, it was a film.
Afro-romantic
film. Yeah. And then so from that point on, it just got to a point of, this is the one. This is the one. It was just like when you wake up every day and you just need to hear, I needed to hear Stella's voice every day. And that could be like, I just spent the night talking to her, and then I still need to talk to her like an hour later because the sun's now risen. You know what I'm saying? That's when you know. Yeah.